because like, this wasn't weird. It wasn't like, oh, okay. It was definitely like, oh, okay. And the disturbing was just like, oh, okay. But in a good way. Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Brookshelf, or welcome to if you're new. Today, we're going to be going over my personal 2024 reading awards. I have like 14 categories. Yes, 14 categories and like honorable mentions that we're going to be going through today. So I'm really excited. I read a lot of good books, a lot of weird books this year, well, I guess this past year. I set out to read 35 books and I ended up reading 52. It was a lot of different worlds to jump into, and I think that it was my yeah, I guess 2023 was kind of my first full year of reading, even though I kind of wasn't reading too much in the beginning of the year, but I think this year was pretty steady. I had a few reading slumps here and there, but I was happy with the books I got to read, and I'm like really excited about the books I'm going to read this year. So let's just get started, honestly. So the first one we have is the most impactful book of the year, and this was one by an absolute landslide. Absolute landslide. And that is a book that I read for my book club called Beloved, and it's by Toni Morrison. This was an amazing read, like first and foremost. And I think that what makes this impactful is the amount of emotion that I felt and the amount and just the reaction, I would say, that I had to this book and how it changed me outside of reading. I definitely want to read more of her books. I think I read The Bluest Eye. I believe that's what it's called, The Bluest Eye. I read that back in high school, and that was really good. But I think I might reread that just because I don't remember it too much. It's kind of vague memories. But this is about Setha, who's a woman, and I think it's, let me see. It has a lot of flashbacks and a lot of just different times. Late 1850s, mid 1870s. I think that that's a good range, like two-ish decades, I think. But basically, it's about Setha and her love for her children. I think that that's the most broad way that I can say that. Setha goes through a lot of trials and tribulations in this book, both with her kids, before her kids, and after her kids. Man, her story is one of a lot of sorrow, but also of a lot of perseverance and a lot of surviving. And she always puts her family first, regardless. But because of the time frame that this book is set in, it is obvious she is a slave at one point in this book, and she does get to freedom, but that's kind of on the back, so it's not anything new. But I think that as a Black woman and as a reader, I think that this was very impactful for me in how I viewed where I am now and what my ancestors had to go through after learning that Toni Morrison actually wrote this about, loosely, of course, about a woman that she talked to and interviewed, who basically kind of lived this life. And it just kind of shined a light on the fact that a lot of people lived this life, and a lot of them didn't have the ending that she got. And it made me angry. Like, the book made me angry, it made me frustrated, it made me sad, I cried. And I don't think, and it wasn't happy at all. Like, I'm not going to say that it had happy moments, it had moments of contentment. And I think that's the best. I think that is happiness for them in this book. And that is all, that in itself is just, it's heavy. This book is really heavy, but it was a heavy that I needed. And I'm very happy that I read this, because now I know that I want to read more of her stuff because of the place that she took me to. So this is most impactful. I feel like I spent like 10 minutes on that. All right, so the next one is the most disturbing story that I read. And this one is actually in an anthology by Stephen King called Full Dark No Stars. And the book that or novella more so, I'm going to be talking about is 1922. This is really good. This is really good. Was my first Stephen King read, and I'm happy that it was a series of short stories because it kind of gave me a taste of all the ways that he looks at horror, and he takes it in a lot of different places. But where he takes it in 1922, first of all, the book was a 5-star read. It was really good. It was really good, but the attention to detail in that book, it was something else. Like, that was the first time I ever was truly disturbed by an author's words in the best way possible. It was so good. Just a little short overview, I guess, kind of how I did for Beloved. Hopefully it's actually short this time. 1922 is about Wilfred. The starting point is in 1922, and Wilfred is having troubles in a lot of different facets of his life. He's having troubles with his marriage. His son is a good kid, but he doesn't have the most perfect relationship with them, and his financial situation as well, which kind of leads to the big not decision, but the big argument that him and his wife are having throughout the first parts of the book is about selling. She wants to sell their farm. They live in a farm out in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of near Omaha, I think. And she wants to basically sell to this big corporation that's kind of buying out the farmlands right now and move to Omaha. She wants to be a little city girl. And I love that for her. And it's basically, we're in his mind. Okay, voice is gone. We're in his mind for pretty much the entire book, and the way that he kind of rationalizes him being mean to her is crazy. Like, she does pester sometimes. She does. But for the most part, she's kind of just saying, "Hey, I think this is a good decision because I want to move there. We don't have to work all the time if we had this money," and all that other stuff. And he just doesn't want to. I think that it's a pride thing as well. He just doesn't want to be bought out. He doesn't want that type of reputation on him. And he also just kind of likes living in the farm, no matter how hard it may be. Growing older, yes, growing older. He hits a breaking point, and he basically makes the decision for him and his son that just completely turns their life upside down. And over the course of the story, we're honestly just watching a man in like 4K. It's extremely vivid. We're just watching his sanity slowly deteriorate, and in that in itself is disturbing. But the way that Stephen King uses rats to show that deterioration, both in his mind and to his physical life, is crazy. It was disturbing, and it didn't help, or I guess it did help. But I was on the road, and I started listening to it. I started listening to the rest of it, and I finished it on the road. And I was just going on the freaking interstate, just in the middle of nowhere, and it just it just went along with the entire vibe. And I think that made it even more disturbing because I'm like, that could literally be happening as I'm passing a farm right now. It was really good, really disturbing. I had a great time with this read, but this was definitely the most disturbing. And I would honestly really recommend reading all of these. All of these were really good. It's just that I think my favorite one was 1922. So the next one is the most sob-worthy. I'm not going to talk about this one too much, actually, just because I can't. I can't. I'm still reeling. Every time I think I'm good, I'm not good. You're never good. I'm not good. Anyway, that is Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. Sarah J. Okay. I see how we're playing it. So, if you don't know this book, this is a set of novellas, a set of prequel novels. This for the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. And so I think this has 5, right? Yes. But the last 2 specifically, I think it's Assassin in the Underworld. Yes, the Assassin in the Underworld and the Assassin in the Empire. I pretty much just saw the page through my tears. You know what I mean? Like that was pretty much it. This man, this book itself, this collection was really good. And I read this first. I know a lot of people read it in publication order, the way that she put it out. But I thought that if I was going to go into a series that had seven books and including this one 8 books, I wanted to go chronologically because I think that I would have it just would have made a difference. I don't think that I would have went as far as I did with the series if I didn't read Assassin's Blade first. So that's just me. Feel free to read it however you want to read it. But I think that gave me this helped me develop a rapport with Selena, with this world, and also the attachment that I had to her even before jumping into Throne of Glass and kind of rooting for her off rip. It was really good. The last 2 novellas were just heartbreaking at some points, and I definitely sobbed the worst I've ever sobbed before over this book. It didn't help that after I read this, I went on TikTok. I think I was posting kind of my initial thoughts, and the first the first TikTok was the scene that was just heartbreaking, and it was playing this sad song, and I was like, okay. And then I sobbed, and I didn't even pick up the next book until like 2 3 days after. I was wrecked. I felt empty, like it was crazy. But this one, the most sob worthy, and I'm probably gonna sob again after this video, just because now I'm remembering everything. So most sob worthy, Assassin's Blade, Sarah J. Maas. She did her thing. So the next one is the best blend of plot and spice. Because I got into like more spicier books this year. And that winner is none other than Neon Gods by Katie Robert. Katie Robert, you have become my bestie this past year. This book right here is extremely well written. It has an extremely good plot. And okay, just to get the gist of it, this is a retelling. I think a lot of them are retellings in this series called the Dark Olympus series. This is the Hades and Persephone retelling. You already have me. You already have me seated with my hands out to read. But this is set in a world where Olympus is a city. It's basically a city with some type of barrier or boundary around it. And it basically runs its own systems. It doesn't really rely on other cities and other countries, et cetera, except for like imports and exports. And it's split to the upper city and the lower city by 3 bridges. I think it's like the Julius Bridge. I think Julius Bridge. I feel like I butchered that. Let me see, the bridge of stick, the Styx Bridge or something. Let me see. Now I need to know. Hold on. The Juniper Bridge. Mm-hmm. Seabrisk Bridge, and then the Helleberg Bridge. Don't know if I said that, but those are the bridges. And in this world, in the governing body is the 13. The 13 that we know from Greek mythology, but the 13, like the titles, Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Artemis, Dionysus, Hephaestus, etc., etc. Those are only titles. So the only titles that are kind of patriarchal, like by family, are Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon. Other than that, all the other ones have a different way of electing someone, or they're appointed. I think Ares and Athena. I think Ares and Athena are by combat or by sport, and then Demeter is chosen by the people, and the other ones I think are appointed. But that's kind of the overview of the world. This is really good. It was a book that had spice scenes. I was like, okay, I can get into this, but the plot is the main reason why I love this book. And I think that a lot of more spicy books tend to just kind of be like, okay, here's like a bit of plot that has like some holes in it, but they like each other and they're hot. That's pretty much it. Like, but reading this series, it has substance. It had a great story that I really wanted to continue. And now I think it's on its seventh book, Dark Restraint, which I just haven't read it yet, but I can't wait to read it, you know? It has substance. It was really good. And I felt like I wanted to make a category just so I can talk about this book because it's really good. But yeah, so Neon Gods is the most, I guess, the best blend of spice and actual plot that you will want to follow and want to jump further into that world. So the next one is The Biggest Plot Twist. Now, this was one that I read on my Kindle and I listened to, so I don't have like the actual the physical book yet. I will be buying it because I have a problem. Is Ward D by Frida McFadden. First of all, Frida, you were making your rounds these past 2 years. Honestly, this book was so good. Oh my gosh. And I couldn't tell what the plot twist was gonna be. And it man, it was so good. It was so good. So Ward D is basically about this medical student. I'm forgetting her name right now, but she is going through a clinical round at the hospital that she's interning at. And so I think this clinical round, she is in Ward D, which is the one that she was kind of dreading. That's the basically psychology floor, psychological floor, whatever that considered in the medical terms. Sorry. But she's on that floor right now. And she's been on there for I think a few weeks at this point, but she's been dreading having to do the graveyard shift, which I think is from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Basically, p.m. to a.m. So she goes there, and the reason why she's upset is because she knows someone that is on this floor. And on Ward D, once you go in, especially for a graveyard shift, you have a passcode that you can put in to go in, and then you have a passcode to get out. But they lock the doors. So she's just kind of dreading because she already has anxiety, but she also doesn't want anyone else to know that she knows someone on that floor. But ultimately, all of that gets wrecked and it turns into a crap show when the power goes and the doors locked. Like there's no fail safe working. And they're basically just kind of like, okay, we're just gonna have to kind of wait until 6 a.m. Like it's fine. Things like this happen all the time, even though it's never happened, basically. But it's a really good story. I won't say the plot twist. Well, I guess I should. Since I'm saying it was the biggest plot twist, huh? Should I? Should I? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, I can. I guess I can. Basically, the plot twist is there's a bunch of different plot twists. The way that they were kind of going through the story, you didn't really know who the person that she knew was going to be, but eventually you find out it's her best friend. And her best friend seemingly is changed. She seems to be less reckless and just kind of not docile, but because she's definitely making a stern point to say that she remembers the medical student that we're following. So that was one twist. And then it was just so many twists, actually, now I'm thinking about it. But I think the biggest one for me was the fact that she was an unreliable narrator. And I know that a lot of people hate that type of plot twist, but I personally love that with mysteries. But I think the way that she did it was so good. Like what was it? I think she was like at a freaking cafe or something, and she just did one thing. I won't go too specific, but she does this one thing, and then she smiles, and it just you kind of get this eerie feeling as it's being revealed in such a nonchalant way that she's actually the one that should have been in the ward instead of her best friend. Like she drove her to that. It was so good. 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 But I just wasn't expecting that at all. I think that at one point, when was it? I think something like was kind of wrong with the storyline a little bit when the main character was talking, and so I kind of thought of it, and then I just like immediately no, like she's actually crazy talking about the best friend, but that was a really good plot twist. So the next one is the surprising 5-star read of the year. Now this is not a surprise because I thought it was going to be bad. I just didn't think that it was going to be great. Like I thought that it was going to be good and it was going to propel the story of the series that I was reading, but I didn't think that I was going to love it out of all of the books in the series that I have read. That's all. And that is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, also in the Throne of Glass series. Now, this is the one I read fifth. Yes, fifth. I'm sorry, I just like breathed so hard just now into the thing, but I had to do a little bookish sigh. This was crazy. This was the best book that I've read in that series so far. I'm still reading Kingdom of Ash right now because I have commitment issues when it comes to series. But what? This was so good. Now, obviously, I won't talk about this too much just because it is right in the middle of the series. Don't want to spoil it. But oh my gosh, the amount of love and happiness and also some sadness and frustration that I felt for our main character. This book was so good. And honestly, all the characters, even the characters, wow, I can't even speak. It was so good. Even the characters that we just met this book or met in the last one that we're just still developing a rapport with, this was really good. This was extremely good. And I know I look surprised, but it was crazy. Like I honestly, Era of Fire was really good too. I think that Era of Fire was the transitioning period for that series, and I feel like that's when it became like an epic fantasy for me, as someone who doesn't read fantasy too much. Like that is when the world really opened up when they went to Windland, and when they were doing this whole little training arc for her, and she was meeting all these people and getting fired up, and she finally claimed who she truly was, and I was itching for her for like the name on the back of the book to represent what was happening. It didn't, but I was so excited with this book. It was crazy. Her going, I can't even. Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but it was so good. 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 I'm gonna stop now. That entire in battle, we need to give Sarah J her flowers. That was so. The next one is the favorite cast slash ensemble, and I again chose Throne of Glass. You can tell what books were my favorite to read this year. But anyway, Throne of Glass was really, really good. I loved the characters that we got introduced to and built a rapport with over the first like 4 books. I guess 5 too. Whatever. But it was the cast is so diverse in their personalities and the decisions that they make and their lifestyle, like the walks that they've gone through is, man, this is a good cast of people. And honestly, when I first realized that it was going to be like multiple POVs in each book, I was worried because I think the only one that got like kind of gotten close was when I did like dual POVs. And usually those were in like romance books or just kind of fiction, like general fiction books. So I never had to kind of figure out a world and figure out the characters, especially because she didn't just say Manon, da 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 da, Selena, da 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 da. You kind of got to get to know, you have to get to know these characters so that you're not halfway through your section like, oh, it's just this person, you know? And she made it very distinctive for all of them in terms of what they called themselves, the way that they talked, their mannerisms, and all this other stuff that we've got to know and love, and sometimes hate. It was it was a great cast of people, but I honestly think that they're all completely three-dimensional characters that I know by like the back of my hand now, and I think that that's really cool. So next is the couple of the year, and that is Reese Larson and Bridget. And I forgot, how do you say Bridget's name? Von Aschenberg. I'm gonna call her Bridge. I'm gonna call her Bridge and Reese. Okay. This is my favorite couple. This is my favorite book in the Twisted series as well. They were so cute and very. It felt, no matter how kind of, not kind of impossible the situation of, oh, a princess with my bodyguard, that kind of story is. I think that they had real development, like genuine development of one, feelings, of character, and they, I think they developed a lot by themselves before they came together. And I think that that was really cool. And I think that that was very real. It was very genuine. I liked how genuine their relationship felt and how genuine I could feel that they loved each other and that they liked each other on a deeper level. And I think that's why they won. I love this book, and I love the progression. I think the pacing was perfect for the two personalities that we have. So this one is the most unique story. I think that I read a lot of different stories that I wouldn't have gone for in 2023 because I was opening up to different possibilities. I was opening up to horror and sci-fi and just the things that sounded weird. I wanted to read them. I want to read them. And so the most unique story, I have to go to Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. This this was a good read. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with Grady Hendrix now. Like I need to read all of his books. Like I'm not even joking. I'm not. I'm not. This was so good. So this, you can probably tell what it's about by the shape of it and the cover. But this is basically a haunted IKEA.
So good. It is so good. It is so good.
I forgot what it's called. Orsk. It's called Orsk. It's so good. But basically this is like made up, like I can't really show it because I have a mic, but it's like an actual brochure that you would get from like a department store. It's so good. And each chapter is a different weird haunted item. And the first one is literally called a Brooka. I'm a Brooka. She's a Brooka. We're Brookas. It is such a unique take. It was good start to finish. Cause I saw, like, I forgot who told me about this book, but it was so good, and I never even thought of this kind of concept of having, like, in terms of format, like the actual format of the book and the actual storyline. Like you come into this kind of mundane Orsk, this department store, and you're following a couple of employees at this store. I forgot her name. Let me see. Like the main girl name. I forgot. But it's like a handful of the security and the floor workers basically. And you follow them what seemingly is a pretty normal mundane day in the life of a Orsk worker from opening to closing. But then the boss basically asked a couple of people to stay back because they think someone has been trying to break in, because they have noticed things were kind of out of place sometimes, things were spilled, and they were just like, you know what, let's just have like three people and like a security guy stay back for the night. basically do a graveyard shift. There's a lot of graveyard shifts going on this year, and see what's happening, and it just turns into this haunted, graphic night of a lot of misfortune for them. But it was extremely good. This is by far one of the most unique books, and on all the counts, that I've ever read. It was so good. And then I find out that he kind of does this all the time. He has another one that I want to read called, I think, what is it called? We Sold Our Souls, I think. And that kind of looks like a rock and roll magazine. It's so cool. But Horror Story definitely took the cake for the most unique story for sure. All right, so now is the weirdest read. Would be the Seep, and I don't know how to pronounce her first name. I think it's Shauna. Is it Shauna Porter? Shayna Porter? I'm so sorry, girl. I'm so sorry if I messed up your name, but you wrote a beautiful book. It's basically about it follows this woman. I forgot baby girl's name. Trina. Trina is 50 years old. So Trina is married to a beautiful woman, to her wife. She loves her. We live, laugh, love her. They've been together for a long time. They've already gotten married. They're kind of just living their life. They have a pretty happy, normal life. They're just living together, and that's all they can ask for right now. So now, basically, these this alien entity called the Seep basically kind of infiltrates Earth and the people. It kind of goes into the water supply and basically injects itself into humans. And this calling that the Seep has does a lot of different things. It helps in a lot of ways, but it also doesn't help in a lot of ways. It's very, from the start, is it's a very weird, complex situation of whether we like the Seep or we don't. Our main character, Trina, she does not. She does not. And the main reason why she doesn't like it is because her wife, after the Seep kind of takes over a lot of people and just it basically turns the world upside down and society upside down, because everyone is still like living productive lives. They're doing all of this stuff, but it's just a Seep is now inside them, and so they don't need certain things. They don't allow certain things. It's just a new way. It's just a new world to navigate. But her wife basically says she wants to do. Wait, let me see this before I say it. Okay, yes. So basically, it's a lot of different processes to aging and to life in general that the Seep allows, and one of it is to be reborn. Like quite literally, you're born as a baby and you can go throughout life. And so her wife wants to do that. And so they have a sit down, and she's like, "Hey, I I really want to grow up again. I really want to have a better childhood than I did before." And she really wanted to feel like that was like, because when you did this reborn process, you were able to get a new family and grow up and do all this other stuff. Basically, she was asking her if she wanted to raise her first. And she was like, "I'm not going to raise the woman that I married X amount of years ago, you know?" And I think that I mostly saw Trina's point, but I guess you could also see her wife's point as well, coming from a background that she did. You would want to have better memories than the ones you had when you were younger. But when she does that, you won't remember the life that you did have, and I think that was what was triggering Trina, because she's like, we're 50, like we've had an entire life together, and you're saying that you want me to basically kind of chuck that out and have you as my kid. A decision is made, and her wife eventually becomes a child, and she goes on to do this life. But we basically follow her onto this road of self-discovery, because she just kind of lost herself after that. She lost herself because she's in this new world. She doesn't have the person that she stepped into it with, and she's been with her so long that she doesn't really know who she is anymore by herself. And so that is what she's doing as she's going through this journey with the seep, about the seep, against the seep. It's just it was a really weird read just because of the way you felt throughout. It wasn't distinctive feelings that I was feeling. It was kind of like a very fluid read where you're just like, okay, eh, okay. Like it was constantly something new or something where you were like, I don't know if I support this or I don't, or I don't know if that seems moral or not, or it was just a bunch of stuff, but it was a really good read nonetheless. All right, so the next one is the best graphic novel. I read a lot of graphic novels this year, which I'm very happy about. And the best one was by far, well, not by far, all of them were really good, but this was just my favorite one. This was Bubble, and this has a few authors. Let me see. Okay, so it was created and written by Jordan Morris and Sarah Morgan, and then it was adapted by Tony Cliff and Jordan Morris as well. So this is also based on a podcast. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's called Bubble as well. I need to look that up a little bit because I do want to actually listen to the podcast, even though I kind of know the story already. But this is really good. This is basically based in a world where you have little living city communities inside this bubble on this planet that is infested with a lot of different alien like creatures. And you have the people that are inside the bubble, and then you have the people that are outside the bubble. And the people outside the bubble are typically of the hunting gathering type. Like that's just a lifestyle that they have to live because they have to kill the aliens to survive. And then the people in the bubble are just not oblivious, but like when you're sitting on your phone and you scroll and you see something happening like across the world, and you're just kind of like, oh wow, you just kind of like, oh wow, but it's like you don't feel any of the effects, but you know that something is happening. It's kind of like that. Basically, there's a breach and some monsters are getting in. And while the monsters are getting in, this corporation develops an app called Hunter. And Hunter allows for people that are inside the bubble, like civilians, to basically go on there. And it's kind of like DoorDash, but you bring the heat. Like you like go to this location and then you kill the monster, get points, get a rating, get money, head out. So it's kind of like that kind of system. And we're following our main girl who used to be in the outside, but it was like this program bringing some of the outside kids into the bubbles. And so she did that when she was kind of young, and she loves her mundane life, but she's kind of itching for that old lifestyle that she had back. And so Hunter allows her to do that. And so she's kind of just racking up points, doing this and a third. But eventually, this fight becomes very personal when it attacks her and her roommate. And then this random guy that ends up developing a power after one of the aliens bite them, and it's basically their journey trying to figure out what this corporation might have to do with the breach, what is happening on the outside that's allowing this breach to happen. And it's just a really good little sci-fi graphic novel. It's really good, so I would highly recommend Bubble. Alrighty. Okay, so this is the main event. This is the book of the year, my personal book of the year. And this book was so good. It was so good. It had a great cast that were all that were just very vital to the fluidity of the book and how it flowed and how it came to be. It was suspenseful, it was scary, it was extremely vivid in detail, and like the suspense was like it was physical. Like I felt it when I was reading it. It was pretty long, and I was kind of nervous about that, but I loved every second of it. I was glued to the pages. It made me laugh sometimes. I would have funny moments because of the characters. it had plot twist after plot twist. It was just like constantly something very new that I didn't expect or didn't predict. It was so good. So good. I wanted to read it right after I read it already. Like it was so good. Okay, so my book of the year for 2024 was Needful Things by Stephen King. Stephen. I'm going to read so many of your books this year. It's insane. I have to. It was longer than my like usual reads, as you can see, but this right here was so good. It was so good, and it was a different type of horror than I thought it was going to be. I thought that it was going to be very like gory and like jump scares, but book form. Like I didn't think that it was going to be as tension heavy as it was, but I think that he does that very well. He kind of did that in 1922 as well. It just wasn't clearly as long. This is my favorite book in general. So just to give a little bit of premise, because I highly recommend this book, highly, highly, highly. So I'm not gonna try and spoil it, but basically you're in Castle Rock, Maine, which is like a little small town that he has a bunch of his books like based in. But I think this one was the last one, so I kind of want to go back and read the other ones. I don't think that they are like chronological. Like I don't think you have to read them in chronological order. At least from what I could tell from this book that I read, I think it's more like interconnected a little bit. Like you see a little bit of landmarks or people from the other ones in this one. So I think there was like a reference to Cujo in this one. So we're in Castle Rock, Maine, and we're basically following the townspeople, a bunch of different people, like the sheriff, the pastor, neighbors. This what is his name? I forgot his name. No, I forgot his name. But like a teenage boy, his little brother. Basically, you have all these little gears in this big system that are just slowly turning. And in this small town, you have Leland Gaunt who comes and opens up a shop called Needful Things, and it seems like whenever you walk in there, he has exactly what you need, exactly what you want, more so, and he always has a bargain for you. You can always get the item that you want, but it's just that when you pay for something, it demands a price. And so he asks that in like little favors, or I'll let you know, or you can keep this, because you're basically helping me by taking it off my hands. He's very smooth, and he's very collected with them. Like right when they see him, they feel a twinge of unease, but it's quickly covered up with the way that he talks to them, and them wanting this thing so bad. He slowly, and because of that, he's slowly turning this town inside out, upside down, and it slowly takes a gruesome turn. And you know that it's gonna take a gruesome turn because of the way that he's describing everything. Because there's multiple POVs as well, but you never know when. It's like always right on the edge of a scene, just like okay, like as it's going, and the tension building is something of insane work. So book of the year, Stephen King, Needful Things. I cannot wait to read more of his work. It's gonna be a good year of reading, guys. All right, so this is basically a balancing act right now on my legs. So we're gonna try to wrap this up a little bit quicker. But this is my best book of the year. We love. And these are just the winners of the 24 awards on the Brookshelf. And I'm really excited about the books I'm going to read this year based on the books that I've read last year. It was a great year of reading, and I'm so happy about the world that I got to jump into. And I'm excited about the world that these have led me to that I will jump into this year. I said, oh, okay. I set my goal for 50 books this year. I can't remember if it's 50 or 55. I'm pretty sure I did 50. Hopefully I didn't make too much of a jump and say 55. But I think that I'm gonna be able to hit it just by the books that I've planned to read, not even the ones that are gonna be released, the ones I don't know about yet that I'm just gonna have to buy. I'm very excited. I'm very excited. I hope that you had a good year of reading. I hope that you continue to have a good year of reading this year. I hope that you have a little bookish day. I hope that you stop by the Brookshelf another time. And yeah, and I'll see you in like, I think not next week, but the week after that. And that week will be the week that I'm reading and posting Onyx Storm. I can't say anything other than I'm so excited. So I'm gonna see you guys in that video, and we're gonna talk about the Empyrean series. We're gonna talk about Violet. We're gonna talk about Zayden. We're gonna talk about Eric, who I hope we have some more scenes with him and Sloan, because I kind of sense some. You know what? That's not what this video's for. That's not what this video's for. Have a great day. Have a great night, and I'll see you again on the Brookshelf. All right.